Why do I stand behind Bill Cosby? Because he has done too much for the black community for me to abandon him. If it wasn't for Bill Cosby, I wouldn't have been inspired to start my own SJS Direct imprint. The Cosby Show had a tremendous impact on me growing up in the South Bronx in the 1980s. It was watching that show that I was first able to see, a balanced image of an African American family. And since then, after that, I saw quite a few imbalanced images of African Americans. And when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate what that was, and it wasn't until I got older and started to see the reemergence of the minstrel that I began to appreciate what Bill Cosby had done for African Americans. So that's one of the reasons why I really support him, and I will support him to the end because he has done so much for African Americans. And if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, we really wouldn't have any African Americans on screen at all. Um, what a lot of people don't know is in the 60s, there weren't that many African Americans on television. And white people like Fess Parker, who owned the Daniel Boone Show, and Jack Webb, who produced Dragnet, they had to fight to get an African American on television. And it was a major challenge for them to get African Americans on screen. And if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, showing that there was a market for African Americans in film, because he was one of the people who helped Melvin Van Peebles help finish Sweetback's Bad Song. If it wasn't for him helping him with a $50,000 donation, that film would have never been made. And a lot of people don't know, if it wasn't for Bill Cosby putting that money up for that film, we wouldn't have any other black films out there because Sweetback was the first major black blockbuster, and that film paved the way for what we call the black exploitation era. And if it wasn't for Melvin Van Peebles making that film, we wouldn't have anything out here right now. That's how much of an impact Bill Cosby has had. If it wasn't for Bill Cosby, again, no black exploitation films, no explosion of black television shows at the time, like your Good Times, your Jeffersons, and your What's Happening. And if it wasn't for them, it's like a domino effect. If it wasn't for Bill Cosby financing that one film, there would be nothing else. There would be absolutely nothing. And a lot of people don't understand, the long-term impact of Bill Cosby on the image of the African American. This is why, people are going out of their way to try to tarnish and destroy his legacy because Bill Cosby has pretty much, again, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be anything else because he was one of the first black people to portray, an intelligent black man in media on shows like on the show I Spy. And he is, he's an icon, a cultural icon to the African American community, and he was a tremendous, he has had a tremendous impact on the African American community, and that's just what he did in Hollywood, behind the scenes, with that whole sweepback thing. That was one of the things he did behind the scenes, and that's something that a lot of people, just don't know about. And that is in addition, to things that he did for African Americans later on with the, United Negro College Funds and, donating to colleges, giving people full ride tuition. I mean, you look at what Bill Cosby has done for black people, and it was, tremendous. I mean, he has done so much for black people, and it looks like to me, some rich oligarch, is upset. Some liberal is upset because he's now trying to tell black people to go out and do for themselves. And the reason why he was trying to tell people to do for themselves is because he was just so frustrated. This man has spent, his entire life dedicated towards helping black people, and he's looking at the condition of the Negro, you know, recently, and if you look at it, you see it the way I see it. It's pretty much screwed up. I mean, we went from black people aspiring to build a middle class to a bunch of codependents still remaining promoting, the same dysfunctional ideas such as your baby mamas, your hood rats, your ghetto people, and we were trying to move past that. And African Americans, we were trying to move past that, and here we were. We have people, going back to this because a handful of Uncle Toms, such as your Negroes, your minstrels with attitude, and your two live coons, started and started promoting this nonsense in African American communities. And it's really frustrating for a guy like Bill Cosby who spent most of his entire life dedicated to creating a positive image of African Americans and helping people, black people move their lives forward, to watch them, go backward. Because if you look at life in the 1980s, like I grew up in, and I grew up, poor on welfare and stuff. But everybody was trying to, get their education. Everybody was trying to get their education, trying to finish school. People were, trying to focus on going to college. People were trying to focus on doing things. And if you look at it, over the last 20 years, we've gone from people wanting to go to college to people going on a prison pipeline. And if you look at it from his perspective, it's really frustrating to look at because that's why he said, "Come on, people," because look at the Negro, look at his condition, look at how screwed up the Negro has become over the last 40 years. I mean, that's why he was really upset, and a lot of people don't understand, why he was upset because you have to understand it from the perspective that he was coming from. I mean, when you go from the guy who financed um, Melvin Van Peebles helped finance his movie so he could finish it, so that you could create employment opportunities for African Americans in the entertainment field. You go and you've developed educational programs like Fat Albert. You've created positive images like the Cosby Show, and you go and you create shows like A Different World so black people can see what college is like. And then you fast forward to 20 years later, and you have the Negro still wallowing in his own filth, talking about how he wants to be a thug and a dope dealer, and you have your women talking about how they want to be baby mamas. You look at that and you say, "Come on, we we went out here and we built up things for you. People went out of their way, black people went out of their way to build things up for you, and here you are running right back to the white liberal to prove to him that you were going to fit every stereotype that he created for you." And that's one of the reasons why Bill Cosby was angry and, made that statement. But, I understand why he said what he said, and that's one of the reasons why I still support him, because again, he has done too much for black people to abandon him. This man pretty much, again, we wouldn't have the black Hollywood we have right now if it wasn't for him, helping to finance Melvin Van Peebles, giving him that last $50,000 to finish that Sweetback song, because that movie again opened the door for the black exploitation era to start, so that all these black actors, could have jobs. Because a lot of people don't understand that at the time Hollywood was really struggling, and if it wasn't for black film, there would be no Hollywood right now. Because in the late '60s, early '70s, the Vietnam War was going on, and people's taste had changed, and Hollywood was still going out here producing these epic movies, which were 3 and 4 hours long, like Cleopatra, these big war movies like Tora, 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 and they were producing these musicals, which were all dying at the box office. And at the time, you had studios like quite a few of them, can't remember the name of them, MGM. They were going broke from these musicals. They were going broke from these epic movies. They were going broke from these type of films. And if it wasn't for, if it wasn't for Sweetback, opening the market and bringing the black audience in, Hollywood would have gone under. And this is something that a lot of people don't know, that was one of the films that pretty much, paved the gateway for the modern Hollywood. There were several others like uh, Tom Laughlin's Born Losers and the horror films and the karate films. All those films pretty much came up because people had their taste had changed, and the Vietnam War had pretty much changed everybody's taste. But when it comes down to black people, the black exploitation era pretty much opened up, the entire economy for African American films, and that was all partially due to Bill Cosby, again, giving Melvin Van Peebles that $50,000 to finish his movie. And a lot of people they don't know, the impact that Bill Cosby has had. They just think, oh, he was a comedian, but he did a lot for black people behind the scenes. And him working with Fat Albert, that helped a lot of people get a positive image of African Americans in cartoons. Because again, at the time there were no black people in cartoons, and that was one of the firsts. So he did a lot for people, and a lot of people don't understand all the things that he has done to help the African American community. Because it wasn't just the Cosby Show. It wasn't just a different world. I mean, again, it was just so many different things. He sent people to college, full ride on the scholarship. He helped, the HBCUs. I mean, he went out of his way for the HBCUs. He did everything, for African Americans. And I look at these allegations. Here they come out here with this 10-year-old deposition. You know, if they really wanted to do, I mean, if this man had really raped someone, back out in the 1960s, 1970s, you know, law enforcement would have got him then, because back then, all a white woman has to do is say she was raped by a black man. She can, even right now, all a black woman, not a black woman, a white woman has to say she was raped by a black man. And, law enforcement's going to come in and take him in, and and in the case of her word against his, the jury's pretty much going to convict him, because that's always been the case in this country for almost a century. I mean, white women have gotten towns like Rosewood and Black Wall Street burned down based on their allegations of rape. White woman got Emmett Till murdered because he whistled at her. And numerous black men were put in jail based on the accusation of an adulterous white woman who was having an affair with a white man, and then when her husband found out, she said that the black man raped her. So, in all of these cases, which are historically proven, how is it that a white woman is going to say that Bill Cosby raped her, and then, law enforcement isn't going to do anything about it? If you look at the historical context of white women and rape and black men, Bill Cosby would have gone to jail. That's just how it would have gone down back in the 1960s and the 1970s. And when people, started using some critical thinking skills and looking at the bigger picture, and they saw that the first part of the smear campaign with the black sex crime didn't go over because people looked at the facts, here comes that same group of oligarchs, somebody who has a axe to grind against Bill Cosby, now coming in with this smear campaign from another angle. And from this angle, this same individual is now trying to say that with this deposition where he's trying to butcher it and take pieces and bits of it, trying to make, a story out of it, he's trying to say that Bill Cosby gave these women drugs. When again, when you look at the historical context, you see a completely different picture, because back in the late 60s and the 70s, people were taking drugs all the time. I mean, people took Quaaludes, they smoked a lot of marijuana, they took a lot of PCP and angel dust, and this is what people did all the time. And to say that, they try to make Bill Cosby look like a black brute, when this is not the case. I mean, he said that when you listen to the words in the deposition, he said he got the drugs for the women. So that's saying that the woman wanted the drugs, or he had drugs for women because he knew that a lot of women wanted drugs. And if anybody who understands Hollywood like I do, because I've been studying Hollywood since I was 7 years old, quite a few of these women were taking these drugs so that they could have sex with these celebrities so that they would be out of their mind. And they took these drugs because they didn't want to think about the acts that they were going to participate in with this complete stranger. So they really don't want, what they're really doing in their attempt to try to malign Bill Cosby, is further tarnishing the image of your American white woman and showing the world what she's truly like in terms of character. And if you know what Hollywood is like, most women, they're a part of the casting couch. And this is what it sounds like to me in the case of all 40 of these women who are making these allegations against Bill Cosby, is that they are part of the casting couch. They came in to LA, they met a celebrity, and they thought that their nuclear waste facility, was top shelf, and that they could use it to gain leverage into Hollywood and, a fast track to acting jobs. And that's not usually, and then what happened was, they went out there and had sex with Bill Cosby, and what had happened, they got high, had sex with Bill Cosby, thought it was going to advance their career, and when things didn't work out the way they thought, they had to wind up taking themselves over to that D-list agency over in I forget what town parts of LA it was, because it's not Burbank. Burbank is like the B and C's. So the D lists are out in the Valley or Van Nuys. They had to go out there to one of those agencies and go out here and work. So their attempts to gain leverage through using their nuclear waste facility between their legs pretty much failed, and now they had to wind up going through everything the hard way, because again, the only way for you to get jobs in Hollywood really is through an agent. You may A lot of women think that because they're so pretty, they can go out here and use their bodies for leverage, like they do with these simps out in their own local um, areas. They think they can go out here and flirt with these simps, but Hollywood is a completely different thing. And a lot of women, they wind up for a rude awakening because they may be the hottest chick in their town, but when you get to LA, um, beautiful women are a dime a dozen, especially blondes. They're all a dime a dozen. Attractive women, they're on every corner. So that's a rude awakening for a lot of women when they go to LA. And some of them will meet up with a celebrity. They'll meet him in a hotel. They'll meet him behind the scenes when they're working someplace, and they'll think that this guy is going to give them, they're gonna sleep with this guy and get some leverage. And in most cases, they usually wind up getting burnt because you're just another jump off to this celebrity. You're just another notch in his belt. And a lot of women, they just wind up having to slink out of the hotel room or the bedroom, or wherever they're at, you know, and head back over to that D-list agency in Van Nuys, or one of those other parts of LA. And that's what usually happens, and that's what happened in the case of Bill Cosby. That a lot of these women thought that they were gonna sleep with this guy and get a leg up, and once the guy got a leg over, they were gonna be shoot to the head of the line, when they would wound up being told to go back to the back of the line with every other attractive actress out there. And being pretty is not going to cut it in Hollywood, and a lot of women, they just don't understand that. So now 40 years later, a lot of these chicks are pretty much old, they're washed up, and now they're looking for one last payday because they know that they can't get any more money out of these simps that like they used to get. They can't use their looks to get money, and here comes whoever this guy is who doesn't like Bill Cosby, and here we have these allegations, being made to smear Bill Cosby. And when he saw that the rape allegations didn't go over, he tries to come at it from a drug angle. And now people are looking at the drug angle and saying, this pretty much is not adding up. And if you do the math and you understand, the entertainment business, you'll see truly that the angles just don't add up. The numbers just don't add up. This does not look like a rape to me. And I thought here in America, people were innocent until they were proven guilty. But when it comes down to Bill Cosby, it looks like everybody's trying to make it like he's guilty. But you have no evidence of anything. Nothing was taken to court. Nothing was, there were no charges. And again, if this was the case back in the 1970s and the 1980s, these women would have gone to law enforcement. I mean, if this man had raped them, all they had to do was just say it happened. Because in the case of a white woman, again, a white woman against a black man, all she has to do is say this black man did something to her, and law enforcement's going to run in and pretty much charge that man. I mean, even in the case of black women, when they say that, a black man raped them, like in the case of Mike Tyson back in 1990, Desiree Washington went out and said that, Mike Tyson had raped her, they automatically believed her and charged Tyson. Usually in these cases, there's no doubt. I mean, this is the way this country has been running for the last 100 or so years. I mean, all a white woman has to do is say a black man did something, and that black man's going to jail. But in the case of Bill Cosby, we're supposed to believe that this never happened, and it just does flies in the face of historical fact. And this whole case flies in the case of this whole allegation, because what we really look at the big picture, whoever this is, in this big six oligarchy, they want to destroy Bill Cosby's legacy. They want to destroy, his cultural status. They don't want people like myself to see Bill Cosby as a role model, as somebody who we could look up to and see his accomplishments, and be inspired to go out and do things like I did with the SJS Direct Imprint and all these books behind you. I was inspired by Bill Cosby, to continue to build on what he had did back in the 80s in creating those positive images of African Americans, and presenting those different stories of the African American experience and diversifying, things like your African American book market, because I saw the images that he presented of African Americans, and I wanted to continue sharing those images with other people and using them to inspire other people so they can go out and see black through a black lens and black through a humanized lens. And we don't get to see that anymore, over the last 15 years. Over the last 15 years, and I'd even dare to say the last 25 years, ever since the start of your your minstrels with attitude, your Ice Coons, your Dr. Dre's, and these other sellouts, all we've gotten is a return to the old school minstrels and the view of the Negro through a white liberal lens. And all we've gotten since then are thugs, gangbangers, dope dealers, hood rats, baby mamas. Bill Cosby did not create those images, with the Cosby Show and the shows like A Different World. If you look at those shows, the black people were presented in a more balanced and humanized way, in a more multidimensional way. But if you look at, you know, things like your Empire and your Scandal, films like your Monsters Ball, your Precious, your other films like your Boys in the Hood and other films like that, it was a return to that minstrel image, the white liberals' view of black people as poor, miserable, downtrodden, people who have to resort to crime, people who have to resort to commit to murder, people who have no ethics, people who have no morals, people who fit within stereotypes that were long established by your Jim Crow. And this is something that the liberal wants to take the Negro back to, and sadly, many Negroes, like sheep, are following that path and not looking at the work of a Bill Cosby and all the things that he established. Again, I go back to this. If it wasn't for him helping Melvin Van Peebles finance Sweet Sweetback, we would have no black entertainment industry today. His help pretty much laid that foundation for everything that we have right now. And this is one of the reasons why I can't go against him, because again, in this country, people are innocent until they're proven guilty. And I'm looking at these allegations, and as a guy who understands the entertainment industry, again, it sounds like sour grapes from the casting couch, because you had 40 women, and again, all it took was for one white woman to make one allegation of rape, and this man would have been pretty much ruined forever back in the 70s, and he would have never come up, and that's all that would have been done. But why would you wait until now? And the reason why they're waiting until now is because they know that this man's legacy, is the last part of him. And if you destroy the man's legacy, you will have destroyed the man for all of history. But, I look at his culture, at his status as an icon, and, it can't be broken, because he's done too much for the African American community for anybody to even think about, you know, taking a wrecking ball to it. Because I look at his all the work he has contributed, and there is no way you can not look at the work of Bill Cosby and see the direct impact that he has had on the African American image and the African American culture. And everything he did was pretty much positive, and it pretty much we wouldn't have any images of African Americans again if it wasn't for Bill Cosby right now. If it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be anything at all, because a lot of people, again, they don't understand, how bad it was for African Americans at one time. I mean, outside of a guest spot on a TV show, that was like a major event at one time, and now it's like if it wasn't for him, paving that way, we wouldn't have that right now. I mean, we wouldn't have what we have. We wouldn't have anything right now. I mean, and this is why, we should be trying to build on the legacy of Bill Cosby like I'm trying to do, when I try to create these positive stories about the African American experience, trying to control our image and trying to protect our image because, this man went a long way in trying to help build this African American community, by presenting those images. Because again, when you control your image, you control how the world sees you. And this is one of the things that I learned, watching him create things like your Fat Albert, your Cosby Show, your Different World. This is what I learned from watching him, and that's why I go out of my way, to create this SJS direct imprint. And I work so hard to create, these positive images because I want to create those balanced images because what we see and what we control, you know, that's a reflection on us. And that's why I try to, make every effort to put our image in the best light possible because when you look at this liberal, he's making every effort to make you look like a minstrel, make you look like a clown, and he makes every effort, to try to destroy the images of African Americans that are positive. And I'm looking at what they're trying to do to Bill Cosby, and that fits right in line with their pattern. They're trying to demonize this man and make him into a monster. And this is something that they have been trying to do because, again, they don't want your kids to look up to a Bill Cosby. They don't want people to aspire to be like him. They want everybody to fit into that stereotype mold, fit into that box, and you know, be what the white liberal wants the Negro to be, which is a minstrel, a coon, which is what your thug and your gangster are. They're just repackaged coons, repackaged brutes, repackaged mammies, repackaged Jezebels, and this is what the liberal wants you to see as black people. And this is what Bill Cosby showed me, that if we take control of our own image and we start presenting our own image, you're going to get a completely different picture. And this is what his legacy really represents to me. And again, this is why I can't go against him. This is why I'm going to stand with him to the end, because I look at these allegations as an attempt to try to destroy this man so that he can't have an impact on future generations and inspire them to take their lives and their image and their sense of self to the next level. That's all I have to say for this video. Comment, rate, and subscribe.